Welcome to another video, and today we are talking about sewing accessories and all the little bits of paraphernalia that you have when you start sewing your own clothes. So I think we'll just jump straight in with what I had when I started sewing, like the first few bits I bought. I can't remember how I came up with this list. I think maybe I saw it online or in a book, but good pair of scissors. So this is not the ones I had when I first started sewing, but I have normal scissors for cutting out my fabric, and then my pinking shears as well for various things. Say use pinking shears, and they have come in very handy, especially for sewing non-clothing items. These come in handy when you want to just finish the seams off. A cutting mat. So I just bought about a 22-inch mat on the length, so it was not huge, and I realised when I started trying to cut out patterns and fabric that you just end up cutting out on the floor because the mat is so small and doesn't cover enough of the table that it is really hard to cut out big pattern pieces. So now I have a 35 by 23-inch mat, and again it is too small. I cut out my big patterns on the floor, and then smaller stuff I then transfer up to the mat and cut out in here. And then the other thing that I bought was this, because I could not cut out in straight lines. I needed a big enough ruler, so this is just 23 inches by 6.5, and honestly it still gets used all the time. But as I started getting more into sewing, I started picking up a few bits and pieces. So one of the first things I got was a rotary cutter. Now if you're starting out and you don't have one of these, go and get one. And also be careful of safety, because I can't feel stuffing it into my fingers now because I kept cutting. So make sure that you close it. So I've just got a bog standard Olaf one. You can get ones that you can grip, they're a bit more ergonomic. And then Hobbycraft now do cheaper blades, you don't have to get the expensive rotary blades by Sew Easy. You can get the cheaper Hobbycraft blades, which I haven't used yet, but I assume they're all the same quality. So yeah, so this meant that I was not using my scissors as much because it's so much easier to cut fabric out with rotary cutters. I was still using the ruler, but now I can freehand it. The edges are a lot cleaner, a lot less jaggedy, absolutely amazing. And to go along with cutting, scissors. You need more scissors than you think you do because you lose them and misplace them. These ones are cute, right? They're super cute. They're just your bog standard stalk scissors, but then I've also got some snips. So yeah, scissors. And then while you're at it, paper scissors, because you don't want to be using your knife fabric scissors and your rotary cutter blades on cutting out paper, so when you cut out your patterns. So I just have some cheap scissors to cut out fabric. So now we've got a nice little set of cutting devices. So as I started gaining more skills, I got one of these. So I don't know who this is by. This is a sewing and knitting gauge, and it has inches and centimetres. And so it says you need a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Just change it. So I do use this all the time when I am doing my seams and I need to measure nice, neat seams. So if it says 3/8 or 1 inch, I mean, I don't ever really go and use the full length. I could probably get away with something a lot smaller, but again, super, super handy. When I first started out, I was using pins because that's what the instructions said, pin, pin, pin. And I find for me, this just bunched the fabric and the paper up a little bit too much. So I don't trace the patterns, I cut the pattern straight out, and then I put the pattern and pin it in place, and then cut it out. And it was just bunching it up, and I didn't feel like I was getting the most accurate results. So now, quiltless cribs. So I use a mixture of both depending on how I'm feeling, and if I feel like it needs a bit more extra security, or can I just get away with clips. So quiltless clips, again, I would highly recommend. Something I have that I hate the fact that I need these, seam rippers. Honestly, seam rippers. They usually come with box stand sewing kits. You need these, and they do go blunt, so they do need replacing, because you will make mistakes and you will need to change stuff, and it's good for making alterations. So a lot of my trousers are a wee bit too short, so I'm just gonna rip all the seams out and make the hems longer. Next on our list is accessories for your sewing machine. So when I was first started sewing, I started off with trying to learn how to quilt, and what I noticed is all my layers of fabric were getting out of line, and it was driving me nuts. So a quick search led me to my walking foot, and this pretty much lives on my machine all the time. Yeah, it was, I think, 30 to 60 pounds. I got this like many years ago. It's well worth the money. It ups your sewing game completely. It's probably the singular best thing I have in my arsenal to make my sewing better. When you're sewing 2 layers of fabric together, and say maybe one of the pieces is just a wee bit slippy, this just walks them all together. Obviously there is still skill involved in sewing, right? But this makes it so much better. It means I can use less pins, less clips. It is well worth the investment. So as we moved on, now I'm making more clothes in the past year, and different companies use different seam allowances. I have actually started using my little gauge again. So this just, you put on your presser, on your foot, on your sewing machine, and you put it on, say, the 3/8 line. So when you're fabric sewing, you line up the fabric edge with this, so you know you're getting 3/8 all the way through. It's better than trying to eyeball it. And at first I thought, oh, it means like I'm really bad at sewing, I'm not improving, but it just makes me be able to sew faster because I have that in place. And so when my gathers on the patina blouse, it's a 1/4 inch, so I could move it on the 1/4 inch foot. I knew where to put this. So I just think it takes a little bit out of the stress when you're a beginner sewer of where your seam allowances are, and just gets you used to, maybe you want to start eyeballing in the future, or maybe you want to come away from using it. But if you're starting out, I definitely would use this, and it just helps you get better quicker. Something you're going to need when you start sewing: tailor's chalk or pencil. I think I got these 3 with the magazine. So these you could just mark on the fabric and wipe off. You can get pen versions, but I always find myself gravitating towards the chalk because it's easy and it wipes off nicely. So if you're marking your darts, if you're marking notches instead of cutting notches, really good. So something that I've recently got for Christmas is my pattern weights. So when I'm actually cutting out my pattern pieces, I just have these. So these are really cute. They're by the Quilted Bear. You could just go get some rocks, right? Or you can make your own weights. Or you can get washers from B&Q, from like building supply, heavyweight washers. They'll do the same. Again, really good, because if you're cutting out, say, like a sleeve, and you've got tissue paper pattern instead of, say, print at home pattern, which is heavier, it just helps when you're cutting out. Everything's in place because it's all weighed down. So before I was always using like pinning it all, so it's just taking so long to get anywhere. And if you are sewing with pins, I use my magnetic wrist thing. I think I got it in a crochet box because I had a terrible habit of just putting them down, and I waved my arms around like a lunatic, and I was getting pins everywhere. And my little one does come in here sometimes, so this has sort of helped erase that problem. And I have also upgraded to a magnetic dish this year from a pin cushion, because it just helps keep all my pins in one place. Other items that I use, these things, right? bias tape makers. So I was buying my bias tape, but it's super thin, it's really, really bad quality, and then you're trying to buy bias tape and they might not have the right colour, the right shade, but if you can make your own bias tape, it's better quality fabric, you're getting the right colour straight away, and you can match it to what you're making already. So I know for a while I was really against bias tape, like, oh, it's so annoying to sew, but it does add a cleaner finish to your items, a level of a bit more professionalism, I would say, and it's actually not that bad to make, really. I quite enjoy making it now, and I like how it finishes off my shorts, my Faraday Pattern Company sporty shorts. I think they look just really fun with nice bias tape instead of the cheap stuff. So yeah, if you've been putting that off thinking, oh, I don't want to do it, just try like something small and just see the difference in quality. And last but not least, a knitting needle. So turning stuff right side out, like collars, project bags, what else? Christmas cracker hats or Christmas crackers, I make those. You need a pointy stick, and you can buy a specific pointy stick for this exact thing, or you can use what you have lying around already, which for me is knitting needles. So I think I've had these for like since I was 17, so like 15 years. And yeah, this is what I use every time I want to poke corners out and poke seams out. So yeah, use what you have. I think that is everything that I use on like a monthly, weekly, daily basis when I'm making various bits and pieces. What else do you use? Like, I want to go and buy a few bits, I think, to start up in my sewing game. So I've seen scissor sharpeners and rotary blade sharpeners, just a few, and like sewing hams, but I want to make my own for that. So I do have a video coming out on that once I actually get around to making them, because now like I'm sewing more garments, and like my darts and clothes and collars and curves, they need to be pressed not on a flat ironing board. So I am gonna do that as cheaply as possible by using scraps. So I've seen a few videos, so again, I'm trying to up my sewing game this year. We're slowly getting there. I will wear clothes that you won't be able to tell that they're not bought. That is my aim, to have properly tailored fitted clothes that look beautiful. And unfortunately, these things require skills that I don't necessarily have, and stuff, items, which I do have some of the items, but not all. So that is my quick rundown on stuff I use when I'm making stuff in the sewing space. Yeah, thank you very much for watching.